Hi, I am Deacon John Wilson, Education Enrichment Director for West Angeles. And I thought I said I would come back and talk about diversity in UC and the thoughts I have on how they can actually get more Black students and actually improve their situations with diversity enrollment without having to repeal Proposition 209, which is what Proposition 16 is really requesting. I think it was, as I said earlier, totally unnecessary and was rightfully voted down by the voters in Southern California, along with two other propositions that I'll talk about some other time, which are quite remarkable too in a state that really defeated Trump 2-1, 60-40, I think is where we're going to end up in that election. So Prop 16 has lost and probably will lose because there are not enough votes to overcome how far they're behind, which is almost 2 million votes behind. I think the first thing I need to say is that number one, uh, sure, when you look at CSU, first of all, I need to say that neither blacks or Hispanics is underrepresented in CSU. They are not. Even at the most selective CSUs, they're slightly less represented, but they're not underrepresented. So this is not a CSU problem, but yet they're lumped in. In fact, there were people who were higher up in CSU who wanted to see this pass. But with all respect, I don't think CSU really needs it. I'll talk about my personal observations, but just looking at the numbers, you can go online and they're all out there in the open. Just Google diversity and UC and CSU. And sure, the leadership of CSU may want to do better, and there's no reason why they couldn't if they don't want to, as you'll see in a minute. All right. Now, in the matter of UC, it's a little different. UCs by state law only accept the top 10% of all students. So right away, you see that the responsibility of becoming eligible for UC is a far more nuanced and difficult question to answer as to why there's not more. It's not just a matter of saying it's racism. It's not clear that it's all racism. There may be some institutional equity issues in the education that Black students receive in the inner city as opposed to most Asian or white students, but that's not UC's responsibility, especially given that I know UC has a lot of great programs to encourage minority enrollment, and they're reaching out constantly. So, again, I don't think it's UC's fault, and I definitely don't feel that it's racism. Every problem, every inequity in numbers is not racism in our society, and this is a perfect example of that. UC uh, Latinx, I guess you call it, or Hispanic students are slightly underrepresented, and Black students are underrepresented. But I think those reasons are the quality of the education in some of our public high schools. In my program, we put our share of students in UC, and they all are great students. They all have great GPAs. But it may be a thing where I attract students that have higher grades. And I don't encourage students who don't meet, who aren't anywhere near the top 10%. I don't encourage them to apply to UC. I think there's no point in putting them in a situation in a research school where they have to do a lot of the learning themselves and have very large classes. I don't think every Black student and every Hispanic student should be in UC. That's all of number one. Next, there's the issue of so the first thing was they're not enough that are qualified to go, and that's not what Proposition 16 is even thinking about. They're just saying we have to use special techniques to get them or lower the requirements. And I don't want to see for requirements to be lowered for reasons that I told you before. Next, if UC really wants more Black students, there's a couple things they need to understand and actually do. Okay, they need to put some money into uh, the community-based providers like our program and other prospective community-based providers like CSU has done. It doesn't take that much money, and let us take the summers and after-school programs and get these babies ready for UC. We've had a lot of success in our program because we have a church that stands behind me and a bishop that is unbelievably, and a board that's unbelievably interested in helping student achievement. And we're a predominantly Black program, and I get a lot of support that way. Just takes a little bit of money. The funding isn't a lot, but it does help us to get students to UCs if you think UCs are, quote, better schools. And that'll be the last point I'll have in just a minute. So I think that's number one, what you need to do. You need to go out into the community and help these high schools get these students ready with programs in the summer, like the way CSU has done, and is steadily increasing its Black student enrollment. You could actually learn from that, UC, if you want to, rather than passing propositions that are really amounting to, soft bigotry, because you're saying that Black students cannot do better, and I just do not accept that they cannot do better. I don't accept that. All right. So you need to just come and get them is the other thing. Therefore, why aren't you out visiting my program more? I mean, you conduct workshops and you do things in the community, but why not just come out and talk directly to the peeps? I find it very difficult still to get someone from UC to come to my program. Now, there are a couple schools that would, um, but they're not the UCs my students typically are interested in. Although this year I'm having more visitation in the virtual world than I ever had. But before this, there wasn't a lot of interest in coming out to see us. And I usually think that's because of budget. And I don't like to see budget be thrown out as a reason when you're telling me you need this expensive proposition where millions of dollars were spent to try to get it to pass. Uh, how about a different way you expend your funds and you'll get those students without a Proposition 16? I don't want to see you thinking, well, we got to write a better proposition, and then we don't ever get anywhere with that because the people in the state of California have spoken. They do not want race involved in college admission. I'll talk about staff and hiring certainly in just a minute. Um, then there's this last thing that there's this intrinsic belief that UC is better. I saw an article today where they were saying it's a proven fact that students from more prestigious schools do better in life. That is not what I see with my students. And I've graduated over 2,000. I have successful students from all kinds of schools, proportionally equal. It is not any special talent that UC has. They're really just a big old research school. A lot of students just go back for their master's. Some of them walk in circles till they find their niche because it's a research school. Um, and this belief that students can't be successful, other than at prestigious schools like the UCs have. By the way, it's really UC Berkeley and UCLA that feel that way. What about the other UCs? I guess they're not as prestigious. That's an interesting thought. But it's not about the school. And along those lines, let me share with you something I always tell our parents and our students. Let me see if I can't get that up for you right now. I will do that. This is very good. Let me go ahead and share something with you that I share with our parents and our students. All right. Just a little bit of an insight into the fact that it's not the name of the school. A lot of you feel it's the name of the school that really determines success, but it's not the name of the school at all, as I flip to that view graph that I want to show you. And that is, what is a good college? I think that deserves some discussion because that's what we're really talking about. What is a good college? Well, saying that a college will make a person successful or even will increase their chances, just the college pick alone, nothing else to be considered, just the college pick alone. Because that's what we're talking about with Proposition 16. That's the intrinsic implication behind all this, is that if I get to UC, I'll be more successful. And when you block minorities from getting there, you're saying you don't want them to be successful. In fact, the article I read said, how do you get more doctors and lawyers unless you go to, that's all a lot of unproven truth. Parents, do not be fooled by that. The school is not what determines the success of a student. Okay, all of you recognize that as Iron Man. In case you know, he's an Avenger and part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Are you going to tell me that Iron Man is just a suit? Is he a suit or is it Tony Stark? Well, I think it's Tony Stark, but you might say it's Tony Stark in the suit. But I don't think anybody will say that it's only the suit that's Iron Man. It's how Tony Stark uses that suit. So UC is definitely a great choice for students who can use the campus properly, right? It's not a matter of if a black student or Hispanic student doesn't get to UC, they can't be successful. There are lots of other great schools. Now, I had a lot of students be successful out of CSU, students that were C students in high school that are doing great in their careers right now. So clearly it's the student and how they work with the campus. That's the key. And then we got to stop this thing of students should get the school they earn and want, not just the one they want. That's a very important factor in college decisioning. All right. So let's stop this thing of thinking that if it's not UC, it can't be, or that UCs have a special lease on success, or more students are successful. I would submit the students that you've seen from UC that are successful were greatly successful in high school. But UC doesn't even choose from those students. They choose the more advanced students anyhow. So I don't really want to hear that that's an acceptable reason to push Proposition 16. I think that's very, very important that we not feel that way about this proposition. All right, just want to make sure we got that straight. It's very important to me to do that we really understand fully my reasons for saying that Proposition 16 was not the answer to get more qualified Black students and Hispanic students into the UC for sure. And CSU, there's already plenty. By the way, one last thing I want to say about UC, it's already getting better. The people I know in UC, even before the Floyd incident, that's probably what pushed this onto the ballot, although I'm not sure if it was already there or not. Maybe it was already there, and now the Floyd incident is kind of pushes it along. But even before the Floyd incident, I've seen UC doing everything they can, including reaching out to Black churches, Hispanic churches. I think they're making a great effort. And look, if anybody from UC sees this in admissions, you're doing a great job. Keep working hard, keep looking for qualified Black students, because that was and Hispanic. That was the intent of 209, that you would do that you would look for these students and you'll find qualified students. Just keep working on your programs. And one final note, the real heavy load you see of qualified Black students is middle class Black students from Black churches that have great grades in high school. And they're not picking UC, but they're not picking UC a lot and wanting to apply to UC because their perception that it's not welcome to evangelical Blacks. And right there, you're cutting yourself off to a large stream of Black students who would come there. They don't feel welcome on your campus when you have things happening that are happening at Berkeley that are certainly not pro-religious, and you're persecuting Black students who would speak out on certain issues and speak their mind. There's not freedom of speech and thought at Berkeley that many Black evangelicals want to see in their college experience. It's certainly much more in CSU. So you need to think about that. You need to think about, am I a welcoming place for these Black students who are evangelical, who have a mother load of a good share of the qualified students? Then you'll have people like me more forcefully pushing my students to you. We don't feel the Christian groups are appreciated on your campus if they exist, and we don't feel Christians are treated equally to other religions that are on the campus. I won't call them out. We don't think that's true. We see students getting hit in the face and getting we see things happening. You think we don't see those things? We see them, and my parents ask me about them all the time. These are the things you have to do. Also, if you want to get more Black students from my community into that school. God bless you. I hope to hear from you soon. Parents, you can respond to me with any questions that you might have.